Welcome back to the podcast. I'm Teresa, certified brand and marketing strategist, helping contractors and home service pros make sense of their marketing, their sales, and the systems running behind their business. We keep things very straightforward here, talk about what's actually worth your time and money, and give you solutions you can put to work. Let's talk about something today that might make you look at your business a little differently. Hopefully, I pray. Okay. How many people have contacted your business in the last 90 days and never bought anything? Seriously, that is a very serious question. Okay. Could you pull that number up right now, fast, in a hurry? Could you tell me how many people called, filled out a form, messaged you on Facebook, requested an estimate, received a quote, said they needed to think about it, right? Told you they were waiting until payday, or simply stopped responding? Could you pull that number up right now? And more importantly, could you tell me what happened to those people afterward? I spent a lot of time talking about marketing, but after speaking to so many blue collar tradesmen, there is one part of marketing that gets nowhere near enough the attention in the contractor, in the home service world, in the trades industry. And that's the follow up. Okay? The follow up, right? Everyone wants to talk about getting more leads and more leads and solve their problems by more marketing and more advertising. Check out my previous episode 60. I talk about this more in depth. But the first thing I hear is we want to get more Google ads, right? We want more Facebook ads, SEO, Google business profile, and LSAs and social media. And yes, getting people to discover your business matters. It's so important, and I'm not telling you that it's not. It's one of the things that I preach about all the time. But there is this entire section of your business sitting between somebody becoming interested and somebody actually becoming a customer. That middle part is where a ridiculous amount of money gets lost. So today, I want to walk you through what a good follow-up system can look like for a contractor or a home service business or any industry in the trades industry, okay? And I want to make something clear before we get into this up front. And I'm not talking about blowing up somebody's phone 14 times in 3 days. I am talking about building a reasonable process so somebody who has already expressed interest in your business doesn't disappear simply because everybody got busy, right? So let me give you an example. Let's say you own a remodeling company, for example, right? Someone named Mike fills out your website form Monday morning, right? I'm thinking about this as I'm speaking, right? Monday morning, because he wants his bathroom remodeled. So your office calls in, or you call him if you're a one-person team, right? You schedule an estimate. Right? This all sounds too familiar. Thursday afternoon, you go to his house, you look at everything, talk about what he wants, take measurements, and eventually send him, let's say, a $16,000 estimate. Mike says, looks good. Let me talk to my wife. So what happens next when someone in your business says that, right? This is where I want you to think about what happens inside your own company. Because if you don't, then I'm just talking over here, right? Do you have a defined next step? Or does everybody in your company basically wait for Mike to call? Because Mike may absolutely want that bathroom remodeled, but Mike also has a job. He has kids. He has a wife that wants to change the tile again. They got another estimate from 5-6 different other companies. Then his truck needed repairs. Saturday came around. Monday morning showed up. And now how many days has it been? 10, 12 days? And nobody from your company has contacted him because they're waiting for Mike to call. Meanwhile, right? And I talk about this all the time. Meanwhile, you're sitting in the office or in your truck, in your work truck, looking at next month's schedule, thinking, we need more leads. Mike was a lead. Actually, Mike became much more valuable than a lead. He invited you to his home. He explained the project. He gave you his contact information. He spent time talking to you, and he received a $16,000 proposal. That is somebody I want you to pay attention to. So let's build this process that I talk about so much, right? The first thing I want you to do is stop treating every lead like they are in the same situation. That is one of the number one things that in the follow-up game, every contractor from what I've spoken to, the people that I've spoken to, does. Everybody is the same, and not every situation is the same. Okay? Somebody who filled out your contact form 5 minutes ago is different from somebody who received a $16,000 estimate last week. Your follow-up should reflect that, right? Inside your CRM, your pipeline, your spreadsheet, whatever you are currently using, right? You need to know where people are and what stage people are in. At minimum, okay, I want you to have a CRM. If you don't have a CRM, we need to figure something out. But at minimum, I want you to be able to distinguish between a new inquiry, somebody who have contacted, somebody who with an appointment scheduled, and somebody who received an estimate, and somebody who either became a customer or decided not to move forward. So at minimum, I need you to figure out those things, right? You can make this more sophisticated later, but I don't want you to worry about that right now. At minimum, I need you to figure out where this one lead is in your sales process, right? Start there. Because let's say you have 63 people sitting in a giant spreadsheet called leads. Nobody knows actually what needs to happen next or where that lead is in, right? If you have more people in your team, they for sure are not going to know if you spoke to them and something new changed, right? A new development happened. So now let's talk about the new inquiries, okay? New inquiries. Somebody fills out your form, your website form, let's say at 2:17 Tuesday afternoon, right? What happens between 2:18 and 2:20? They should receive some type of confirmation, correct? Right? That could be a simple text. That could be a simple text. You don't have to call them back right away. That could be some simple as, hey, this is John from ABC Plumbing. We received your request about leaking water heaters. Someone from our team will reach out shortly. You see how simple that is, right? That message isn't trying to close the sale, but is letting the client know or the potential lead know that you've received, right? It confirms that their request went somewhere. And that matters because consumers, I mean, we are used to getting things immediately, an immediate conversation, right? You think about almost everything that you do online, right? You order something, confirmation. You schedule an appointment, confirmation. You buy something, right? You make a payment, conversation, confirmation. Then somehow we go to a contractor's website, fill out a form asking someone to come into our house and potentially charge us thousands of dollars, and we get nothing. So now that consumer is wondering whether that form even worked. And they don't have time to spend to sit around and think about, you know what, let me submit this form again. No, they're going to go somewhere else. They're going to go back to Google. They're going to contact the next company. And then that second that the company responds, guess who now has the conversation, right? This is why response systems matter. If you are a very busy person, you need to have a response system. There's no ifs, ands, or buts because you know this very well. I'm pretty sure you know that you probably lost money because you did not respond fast enough. And there's another simple one that I think most home service businesses and contractors should have, and that's a missed call text back. A missed call text back. Sounds crazy, right? Or sounds simple. Sounds like you can do that on your own, right? Your phone rings while everyone is busy. You are busy. You are up somewhere, right? Making, maybe you're underneath somebody's sink. Maybe you're a receptionist already talking to somebody else, or you are already talking to somebody else. Maybe you're driving, right? That customer hangs up. A text automatically goes out. Sorry, missed your call. This is ABC Plumbing. How can we help? It's so simple. And we complicate things. It's so simple. You just kept the conversation alive. Now the automation should support your team here. Now the automation should support your team here. I repeated that because I want you to understand it shouldn't replace basic human interaction, all right? Because if someone responds, my kitchen is flooding, I don't want that person trapped in some 7-step automated nurture campaign while their kitchen becomes a swimming pool. So somebody needs to take over. This is where businesses sometimes, they do get carried away with automation and AI and the newest thing, right? They hear AI and they hear workflows, they hear automated follow-up, and suddenly they're trying to automate every interaction in their system. And you don't need to do that, all right? What you need to do is automate the predictable parts, right? Let yourself, handle conversations that require judgment, right? All right, moving forward, let's go into appointments. Very important. Someone schedules an estimate Thursday at 2 p.m., right? Do they receive a confirmation? Do they receive a reminder? What do they receive, right? Do they know who is coming? Do they know who or what they look like? Do they know approximately how long the appointment takes? Do they know whether they need to do anything beforehand? Right? Those messages improve customer experience because before you even arrived, they already trust you. What do you need to conduct a sale? Trust, right? And they reduce those situations where, you or your technician drives 35 plus minutes across town, pulling somebody's driveway, and there's nobody home. So let's get into the estimate, right? The estimate part, this is where I think there's a massive opportunity for service businesses, right? You send an estimate, right? We love sending estimates. We love sending quotes. I want a follow-up process attached to that estimate. I want you to have a follow-up process attached to the estimate, right? It doesn't have to be complicated, okay? Because I know every time we say process and automations and systems, we start getting a little hot because we feel like, damn, or a little intimidated. Like, damn, I had to sit down, or damn, I had to hire somebody. It really doesn't have to be complicated. Maybe the estimate goes out on Thursday, right? It goes out on Thursday, Friday, or Monday, depending on the type of project, okay? Somebody follows up. That could be you or one of your teammates, right? Hey, Mike, let's say Teresa from ABC Remodeling. I just wanted to make sure you received the bathroom estimate we sent over. Let me know if you have any questions. Simple, okay? Notice what I'm doing? I'm opening the conversation because it's important. People are busy. I'm not sending ready to book, click here now. Ready to book, pay this deposit. Relax. Please relax. I know times are hard and we need the leads and we need the money. But the guy asked for a bathroom. Give him a minute, right? A few days later, if you haven't heard anything, follow up again. This is where a lot of you guys don't close because you guys do not follow up again. You always want more leads. Hey, Mike, just checking in that bathroom project. Were there any questions about the estimate or anything you wanted us to clarify? Right? That question can uncover so many useful information. Maybe the price was higher than expected, and some customers are afraid to let you guys know, right? To let us know that it's expensive and they can't afford it for whatever reason. Ego, embarrassment, I don't know, don't want to waste your time, but they honestly don't think about us, right? Maybe they're comparing quotes. There's so many of you that do the same thing. You have so much competition. Maybe they want to change the scope. Maybe they're waiting until next month for the next paycheck or for something that is not so expensive. Maybe they're deciding not to do at the moment. And all of those answers are valuable because now you know. What I don't want is a pipeline filled with people whose status is basically, who knows, right? That's not a pipeline. That is not an actual sales process that's going to scale your business. I always say this: growing is much different than scaling. Growing, there's a gap. There is a cap. Scaling, the possibilities are endless. That is a junk drawer. And yes, I said it, right? Some of you have a 300 a month, for example, CRM, that is basically a very expensive junk drawer. Hundreds of contacts. Nobody knows where anybody came from. Nobody knows who needs a call. Nobody knows who received an estimate. Nobody knows which customer booked. It's actually quite sad. And this is why your competitors are winning, right? Then somebody says that we need a better CRM, or we need a better marketing agency, or we need a better whatever, or we need more leads. No, you probably need to use the one you already have properly, right? Technology cannot organize a process that you haven't defined. So before you go shopping for another CRM, sit down and answer this. All right, I need you to answer some questions before you go and say, you know what, I'm going to shop around for the cheapest or best CRM. I don't know, right? What should happen when somebody becomes a lead? What should happen when somebody becomes a lead? What should happen when we cannot reach them? Right? What happens when you can't reach, when you called multiple times? What should happen when an appointment gets scheduled? What should happen after an estimate gets sent? What should happen when somebody says, not right now? Right? You get what I'm getting? You get my drift? What should happen after somebody becomes a customer? Or what happens when they are ready right now and you are literally on top of a ladder, right? Once you answer those questions, your CRM has something to manage. Now it has something to work on, right? So now let's talk about the people who say, not right now. Not right now, okay? Those people they get forgotten pretty constantly and pretty quickly, because now they're like, not right now. So then you feel like you shouldn't be wasting more time on them. Let's say you own an HVAC company, for example, right? Somebody needs a new system and you quote them, I don't know, $9,500, right? They tell you, we're going to try to get this through the summer and replace it next year. Okay, all right. You are the experienced salesperson. You are the experienced technician, right? You are the experienced HVAC person. So you should know what to do next, right? So that person should not disappear forever, okay? They told you when the opportunity may come back. Put that information somewhere. Where are you going to put it at? On your phone? On your spreadsheet? Put it in your CRM and then follow up later. Maybe you contact them in February or in March before everybody starts calling HVAC companies in June. Hey, Sarah, you spoke with us last summer about replacing your HVAC system. You mentioned possibly visiting it this year, so I wanted to check in before the warmer weather gets here. That is strategic move right there. That is completely different from cold outreach, okay? If you feel like you're cold calling somebody, you never know, that person could be quite warm. And there's context, right? There's history between you guys. They know your company. They reached out to you first, right? Even though it was last year. And this is where having a good information inside your system becomes incredibly valuable, right? So now let's talk about customers who already paid you, because follow-up shouldn't stop when the invoice gets paid. What happens after the job? Do they receive a thank you? Do you ask for a review? Do you send them instructions if they require service or maintenance in a couple of months? Do you check in later? Do you remind them when another service is due? Right? Do you get where I'm going with this? This is especially important for businesses with services people need repeatedly. If you're an HVAC person, right? HVAC maintenance. HVAC needs maintenance, pest control, cleaning, landscaping, pressure washing, plumbing maintenance, electrical inspections, septic, pool service. Those are industries, right? Those are industries that require maintenance. So you already paid in either money or effort to acquire that customer once. You did the work. That's it. They trusted you enough to pay you. They trusted enough to hire you, right? You have a relationship already. Don't let that relationship grow cold. That customer should have to rediscover you on Google next year. They should have not. And there's something else that I want you to look at, right? How are you asking for reviews? Because reviews are part of the same system. The job is finished. The customer is happy. That is the very moment. That is the time to shine. Send them the request. Make it easy. I have an automation set for my contractors and home service providers that as soon as an invoice is paid, a review is sent 2 to 3 days, depending on the customer, my client, and how early and fast they want the review sent. I usually don't send it right away because the customer needs time to process the service. So 24 hours to 48 hours is that sweet spot, right? If for some reason they don't get a chance to click the link, our system continues sending the request until they do. You gotta make it easy, right? Remember, homeowners, they're busy, right? Give them the direct link, then follow up once it's necessary. If you see after 21 days, for example, after a while, you haven't received a review, call them up and ask them, hey, that job that we did, 3 weeks ago, 2 weeks ago, how was it? That, whatever they say right there, record that and then post it on social media. That is a review right there. Maybe they are too lazy to write, but it's easier to say, yeah, it's still great. Record that, okay? A steady review process helps your reputation grow alongside the businesses instead of your suddenly realizing that you haven't gotten a Google review in 6 months. So now I want you to address something because I know what some of you are thinking. Teresa, I don't have time to do all of this. Exactly. You don't. This is why we built systems. I'm not here to sell you. I'm here to educate you. But I want you to know that we do this, okay? You should have not wake up every day or every morning and remember, oh, shoot, I need to call Mike, or I forgot Sarah's estimate. Did anybody call a guy from Facebook? Right? These are just the extra things that you don't have to think about, right? Who was supposed to follow up with yesterday's appointments, right? If you're a one-person team, you got to think about all these things, right? Your system should do this, right? Should surface those things. Some parts can happen automatically. Some parts should create a task for a human, right? Maybe your missed call text happens automatically. Your website confirmation happens automatically. Your appointment reminders, they do happen automatically, right? Okay. Review requests can happen automatically. Those are things that should happen automatically. Then an estimate follow-up creates a task for your office manager or your salesperson because you want a real conversation. That combination works very well. If you need help with that, let me know. Now, let's talk numbers. I want you to do a little exercise this week. I told you this podcast is going to have you thinking. It's going to have your gears running. And it's just good. By the time you're done listening to this podcast, you're going to be like, you know what? Let me sit down and look at my numbers, right? So I want you to do a little exercise this week. Pull every estimate you sent over the last maybe 30, 90 days that you did not close, okay? I don't care whether you use QuickBooks, Jobber, Household Pro, High Level, Service Titan, a spreadsheet, a legal pad, whatever it is, find them. Add up the dollar amount. Let's say you discover that you have $130,000 in outstanding estimates. I am absolutely saying that there is $130,000 there waiting for you. I'm not saying that, right? But some of those are probably already hired somebody else, right? Some changed their minds, baby, right? Some projects got delayed. I don't know, some things happen, right? Some estimates may have been too expensive. But now I want you to check something else. Okay? How many of those people received more than one follow-up? How many people received more than one follow-up? Maybe it's 5, maybe it's 10, or maybe it's 0. And that should tell you something. Before you immediately increase your advertising budget next month, work on that list. Buddy, you have to exhaust every avenue in your business. Start those conversations, relive those conversations again. This is where you learn and you scale your business. Update statuses, find out what happened. You may close a project or two just because you asked what happened, just because you followed up, right? Or you may close all of them, right? In a perfect world, who knows, right? Or you may close absolutely nothing. But even then, you learn why people didn't buy, right? So that helps you change the way you sell, the way you approach things, the way you are telling people about your business. And that information can improve your sales process. Maybe your customers repeatedly tell you that the estimate was confusing. If you are itemizing every single thing that you use, maybe that's confusing, right? Remember, you are the subject matter expert. The customer is not, unless they're another contractor, for example, right? Fix the estimate. Maybe people consistently say they never heard back quickly enough. Fix the response time, right? Cut that down. Maybe people are getting quotes and then finding cheaper providers. Maybe you can look at your positioning, right? Pricing, sales conversations, or the type of leads you are attracting. Think about that. What type of leads you are attracting. That's very important. This is what I want you doing in your business. This is working on your business, not working in your business, right? Another video for another day again, right? I want you to diagnose what is happening instead of assuming, because this is how you get burnt out, because you keep assuming that things are not working, but you're not really sitting down and looking at your business. Where is the bottleneck? Where is the broken process? Because assumptions get expensive, especially if you keep patching them up with more advertising and more marketing. We need more leads, right? Is an assumption until you know what happened to your existing opportunities. Our ads aren't working is an assumption until you know what happened to those, after those leads that came in. Our salesperson isn't closing is an assumption until you look at the conversations, the estimates, the follow-up, and the numbers. Your systems give you visibility into those answers. And that's why it's very important for you to have a CRM, a good sales process, so you can visually see it. And that's why I talk so much about back-end systems. People hear marketing agency, they assume everything starts with advertising and social media and ads. I am much more interested in what happens when advertising works, right? If I send 50 people into your business tomorrow, are you ready for them? Can your team respond? Can you respond? Can you track them? Can you take them in? Can you follow up? I had this one client and we sent him 127 leads. I remember this like it was yesterday. And all he said was those leads are not good. So I asked him, how many times did you call them? Oh, I called them once, but they never answered. What? You only call them once? People who call you and you don't answer, you're probably doing something. You're probably busy. So if you can't follow up, don't think about more advertising. Fix your follow-up system, right? Can you tell me which ones became customers? Can you tell me, what revenue came from those customers? These are really things that you need to know, knowing your numbers. If you cannot answer those questions, I want to fix that foundation while we work on visibility. I want you to fix that foundation, okay? Because eventually you want a business, right? I want you to have a business where marketing connects to sales, sales connects to operations, and you can actually see what is happening, right? You don't need some Fortune 500 setup to do that. A 5-person plumbing company can have a defined sales process. A solo pressure washer can have an automated missed call text back. A 2-person cleaning company can have appointment reminders, right? A remodeling company can have an estimate follow up process. You build the systems around the size and reality of the business you have today. Then you can improve as you grow. But sometimes we want to do it backwards. We want to improve, and we want to keep just patching, putting band-aids on the wound and not letting it air out, right? Not letting it heal, not fixing it, not seeing like, what is the problem? Why is this wound not healing, right? So here is your homework for this week, all right? I want you to do a follow-up audit. Go back 30 days, right? You can go back more if you want. But go back 30 days so you get used to how to do these things. Find every person who contacted your business and did not become a customer. Figure out, where they stopped. Maybe they never heard your first call, right? They never called back because they got busy, right? Maybe they received an estimate. Maybe they said they needed some time. Maybe nobody knows what happened, right? Then choose the stage where you are losing the most people. That is where I want you to start, okay? If you have 22 estimates sitting untouched, follow up with them. If you have 40 website inquiries and half of them never received a phone call, fix your new lead process. If your customer finished jobs and nobody asked for reviews, build the review process. Pick the biggest gap and fix that one first, all right? And please don't spend the weekend building 47 automations or searching for the best CRM or the best marketing agency. One working workflow is more useful than a giant system nobody understands, right? Build something your team will actually use or you will actually use. Then test it, call your own number, right? Fill out your own form, right? Move a test contact through your pipeline if you have a CRM right now. Send yourself an estimate. See what happens. See what happens. You should experience your system the same way your customer experiences. That way you know what to fix. Because if you're confused by your own process, imagine how they feel. And next time somebody tells you that the answer to slow business is automatically more leads, you'll be able to look at your own numbers first and decide whether that is actually true or not. That is the level of control I want you to have over your own marketing. All right. Thanks for hanging out with me today. If this helped, share it with some business friends or your best friend who needs a simpler marketing, or tag me on Instagram at Teresa G Sivak. And if you are ready for a partner, book a demo or a free consult using the links in the show notes. I'll see you next Friday.